alleged rebirth, as it does not really exist. Check for correctness. Sfath, Wednesday, the 16th of April 1947, Meier, Niederflachs, 1253, Bülach.
First of all, the so-called rebirth should be brought up and serve to clarify that it does not and also cannot exist, because the creation energy form is a form that is, so to speak, a particle of the energy and power of creation. This energy, with its power existing in it, cannot become flesh. Consequently, it cannot be reborn as a human being. Because as an eternally existing creation, life energy, it is absolutely pure energy with great power, but not material like the human being. It animates and which is transient. After dying, and therefore when death has occurred, the body dissolves, decays, and fades away, leaving only the bones. And so when the life energy of creation escapes from the material human body and it becomes lifeless, it is dead. As pure energy and power, the body cannot be reborn, but it is given to it, as to every kind of life form, that the body and its organs must be animated by creation energy. Consequently, only through this does the body have life energy. The evolutionary creation energy, through which alone the creation energetic consciousness and its unconscious is formed, which is connected together with the creation energy and forms the negative and positive, and is also deposited stationary in the brain of the human being. But with this he is not able to learn and become knowledgeable, but only through his physical consciousness. For with this alone he works and evolves, whereby through his subconsciousness what he has learnt is passed on to the effectively neutral creation energy unconscious, but only absolutely neutral values of the acquired knowledge, which are stored in order to enter the beyond, or that creation energy level, after the death of the human being and the body with the evolutive creation life energy, as well as the revitalizing creation energy, into that level of creation energy. This is in order to process everything in it, and after a certain period of time, which can be many decades, centuries, or even millennia, after which it occupies an absolutely new human being, or a new personality that has no memories of the previous life of the previous personality, or an even earlier personality. There are therefore no memories of previous lives, which means that no things can also be transferred to a new one, as is also the case for descendants who cannot inherit any knowledge or, for example, abilities, etc., genetically or then-wise, but effectively only diseases and the like that are already present on the father's or mother's side. However, if we are talking about inheritance, for example, if offspring exhibit the behavior of their parents or one of their parents, then this is inherited during the acute current life by being told, demonstrated, acted out, or exemplified. If impulses are released from the creative energetic consciousness or its unconscious, then this happens unconsciously for human beings. This is done in such a way that, imperceptibly for the human being, the necessary vibrational impulses are released from the creative energetic consciousness and its unconscious and are absorbed by the physical consciousness or its ever-awake subconscious, whereby an impulse-like stimulation of the human being's activity takes place, which he does not consciously perceive, but nevertheless unconsciously becomes mentally, volitionally active, and thus continues to develop further and further in this respect. With regard to the creation energetic consciousness and unconsciousness, this remains absolutely uninvolved and neutral with regard to all activity concerning the physical, consciousness, and its subconsciousness outside of the aforementioned creation, energetic vibrational impulses, and such impulses that trigger certain evolutionary cues. The absolutely neutral creation energetic consciousness, and thus of course also its unconsciousness, only form the energy maintenance to drive and maintain the function of the physical consciousness and subconsciousness, This, of course, in addition to the vibrational impulses emitted to this consciousness and subconsciousness. This is not only the case with human beings, but also with all animals, all creatures, and every other life form that can only live and exist through the life energy of creation. However, with regard to the body, this is only according to the form of energy and strength that are measured by the body itself and according to its constitution, etc. All this, however, is not transferred after death through a rebirth into a human being and body that is reborn again in the same way after death, or changed in terms of creation energy. Because in this sense, there is absolutely no rebirth, just as such a rebirth is impossible at all. As an example, the following should now be explained with regard to the fact that there is no rebirth. Also in the sense that, for example, if a human being has died, he will be born again as the same person sooner or later and will therefore lead another life and existence. It must be fundamentally explained that the creation energy absolutely only escapuses or withdraws into the creational energy level intended for it for a certain duration, so that the evolutionary creation energy connected with it can continue to develop for the required duration by effectively processing, forming, shaping. I lack a term to name this process differently. All that it has learnt in the material body of the previously living person into real knowledge and storing it within itself for all infinity. This process can take a very long time, hundreds or even thousands of years according to earthly time calculations, before the process is finished and everything is processed. Once the end of the processing has been reached, the further developed creation energy becomes capable again of entering the nascent new life form on the 21st day after conception, together with the creation energy that animates a human being or his body, into which both creation energies integrate and thus into an absolutely new personality. This activates the life force of the new embryo, whereby the fetus unfolds and the creation life energy consciousness and unconsciousness begins to transmit its vibrational impulses to the physical consciousness/subconsciousness, which already absorbs the mother's sensations and emotions. These in turn stimulate the function of the developing brain of the fetus, whereby the primordial beginning of the still unconscious world of thoughts becomes active, which later controls everything decisively after birth, without exception through emotions, through which thoughts are stimulated, which then generate feelings, which in turn trigger. As a result, thoughts lead to actions being devised and behaviors being applied and carried out in a positive or negative way, depending on how the human being forms his or her personality or character, either from within or through influences from events in the outside world, influences from persons such as parents, relatives, friends, acquaintances, the military or communities, etc. If, after the birth of the new personality, it strives for the positive out of itself with the factor of physical consciousness and also purposefully provides it with this, then a harmonious, coherent whole is created that determines and creates an absolutely balanced and secure behavioral stem function. As a result, everything is organized, structured, and cooperatively integrated and controlled in all processes of life. This integrates the physical consciousness into the new life and successfully connects all material and creation energetic factors, enabling all elements of the world of thoughts, feelings, emotions, actions and behaviors, etc., to work together absolutely smoothly in a positive, wise way. This results in the holistic formation of the full function of the synapses of the human being's brain, which, by utilizing his consciousness, can necessarily develop into the absolutely valuable ability of positive thinking, correct reasoning, understanding, reasoning, and also logic through the necessary networking and interconnections. All this is based on the fact that the whole life and existence of the entire creation, which is nature, fauna and flora, the universe, the stars, planets and moons, meteors, comets, and the entire cosmos, the universe and all existence in general, is built and exists equally on the principle of becoming and passing away. And just as the vitalizing creation energy and the evolutionary creation life energy together are a part of the gigantic endless reservoir of creation energy itself, so the actual creation energy alone, without any exception, animates every single life form of every genus and species throughout the universe, thus with regard to human beings equally woman and man, but also every genus and species of fauna and flora. This, like a further form of creation energy, namely the so-called creation element energy, animates the various forms of matter, graded according to their nature. The 7 main forms of creation energy can be named as follows: flat rate creation energy, creation energy, revitalizing creation energy, evolutive creation life energy, creation element energy, creation imprinting energy, creation conversion energy. In total, all these forms of creation energy work in the area of the lowest 7-fold form of creation, which is limited in its duration, in its 7-fold universe area, whereby this already initially has a material belt cosmos, from which physical life forms are brought forth according to an evolution-determined development period, which spread cosmos-wide on formations of planets and moons, but are brought onto these by asteroids, space dust, comets, meteors, and life forms traveling through space. The universe of creation, which is 7-fold and also accordingly exists in 7 different dimensions within each other, exists and is organized into 6 pure energy belts, 3 of which enclose the material belt and 3 of which enclose the cosmos and consist of pure energy. All forms of creation energy are given and effective in exactly the same way in the entire 7-fold realm of creation, so that everything is given equally in every form in all the universes of creation. The effective fact is that everything that happens in this respect in the actual realm of creation energy and creation life energy also occurs in natural life, and the entire plant world is also organized in it, finally according to genus and species. It is the practice of creation that what occurs in the realm of creation energy levels and with regard to the vitalizing creation energy and evolutionary creation life energy, with regard to the life forms that move in the existence of life itself, namely that it continues to develop in its life form creation energy in its designated creation energy realm. This happens by working through or processing what has been held and stored in the creation energetic consciousness during the lifetime. This is an evolutionary process, whereby the process takes place in relation to creation energy, while creation energy alone animates the life forms that lead a material life and thus belong to the fauna and are self-perpetuating. However, these do not include the beings of the flora, that is to say, the plant world, which includes everything from the smallest plant to the giant tree. Their vitalizing creation energy is of a different kind with regard to evolution, for this is not evolved in the creation energy realm towards a new life, for it develops in that, for example, the leaves of trees or the blossoms of flowers and herbs, etc., wither, dry up, and fall off, while the root system goes into a dormant state for a certain time in order to then green up again, as also to awaken to new life. This is at least the case with those plants that have a perennial lifespan, such as grass and trees, etc. But there are also fruit trees and fruit bushes that shed their ripe fruit, or are harvested, which then simply go dormant, only to green up and bloom again to produce new shoots and fruit. The root system of the plants, which builds up and forms new regenerating energy and strength during the non-growing period or after the harvesting period in a following resting phase, so that the plants can blossom again and bear fruit once more, can be understood in comparison to the resting period and also its exact processing of all the stored knowledge of the life energy of creation. Thus, there is an equality between everything material with regard to the development and the truly absolutely new personality that arises through the resting learning pause of the creation life energy, as well as the reawakening plant, such as the simple blade of grass or any other plant. So in this way, exactly the same is given, but only the wise is different. So on the one hand, materially in pure creation energetic form for all mobile, self-moving life forms, but on the other hand, also for all other life forms that are stationary and cannot move independently. After the death of the body, the creation energetic consciousness immediately reunites with the creation life energy that is absolutely appropriate only for it, and also with the creation energy level in the realm of the effectively countless creation energy levels that are given and exist in the universe space or in the realm of creation, and that are only assigned to the respective entity genera/species. This in order to process all the really countless aspects of knowledge experiences collected in there. Previous existences in various material personalities in longer or shorter duration, completely, meticulously, exactly. In this respect, absolutely everything that has arisen in the personality or life of human beings during their existence in consciousness, in the same way as in animals, creatures, or other life forms. In this sense, truth and understanding are processed, learnt and stored by the creation life energy and processed in rest as very valuable knowledge experiences that it has acquired and in the creation energy level. After a longer or shorter period of time, when all knowledge experiences have usually been processed, a creation energy consciousness and thus a new personality is revitalized, which is conceived as a human being by human beings, by men and women. This happens when a sperm cell or sperm of the man fertilizes an egg cell of the woman, whereby such fertilization normally takes place in her fallopian tube, provided that a healthy egg cell is expelled from the ovary and so-called ovulation occurs in this wise and the egg cell is actually absorbed by the fallopian tube. A so-called yolk sac first emerges within a few days of conception, after which the embryo emerges after a certain period of time in the woman's womb, which forms quite naturally in the course of the developmental stage and lies within the amniotic sac laterally under the uterine lining. The entire knowledge experience of the previous existence of the creation energetic consciousness gained in life is processed after the death of a human being in a creation energy level intended for this purpose, whereby everything is stored as knowledge in the unconscious of the creation life energy consciousness. This is formed by the purely evolutionary creation energy, which in a material physical body, which fundamentally animates the body of the personality or human being through pure creation energy, just as animals, creatures and all other life forms are also animated by creation energy, all of which also have a type of consciousness, although this is fundamentally different depending on their type or genus. For example, instinct consciousness or impulse consciousness, feeling consciousness, emotion consciousness or movement consciousness, etc. So everything is processed in a predetermined creation energy level, whereby it is simultaneously stored for all time in the creation life energy and thereby evolves it. This purely creation energy procedure in turn benefits the next subsequent new personality, which may be sexually different from the previous or deceased one, which is revitalized by the same creation energy. Just as new knowledge is given by the further evolved creation life energy, which, however, is only brought to bear on the new personality unconsciously and without its conscious knowledge. However, the whole of the new personality, the knowledge of the creation energetic consciousness, which is only subliminally effective, brings progressive and developing success in every respect with regard to evolution. It must now be explained that the creation energetic evolutionary consciousness and its unconscious are really of an absolutely pure creation energetic nature, and that this evolutionary consciousness is only subliminally active for human beings and without their conscious knowledge. This is given to him as a creation energy consciousness that exists stationary in a certain area of the brain, whereby this creation energetic evolutionary consciousness works underground without the human being's knowledge. On the other hand, human beings work independently with their own physical consciousness and its subconscious, although this consciousness is not stationary in a specific location, unlike the creation energetic consciousness. The physical consciousness is formed by the entire brain, through a dynamic cooperation of all concretely important parts of the overall brain, which human beings define as certain parts of the brain, such as the cerebrum, which is also responsible for thinking and speaking. Then there is the cerebellum and also the midbrain, diencephalon and hindbrain, whereby the meninges enclose the entire brain. The creation life energy form, which animates the consciousness of a human being in terms of creation energy, and thus also the corresponding personality that is formed by it, is, however, shaped by the human beings themselves. This takes place through his thoughts, actions, behavior, and actions, etc., in his self-determining value or unworthiness, consequently through his self-education and self-forming. This is given to the consciously thinking and acting human being. Also with regard to his illusory thinking, if he has fallen prey to a belief, just as, however, only an impulse state or an instinct state, etc., is given as consciousness to all animal and also to the animal and other life forms of all genus and species, to which an impulse action or an instinct action precisely attuned only to the respective genus or species is inherent, whereby this action is to be understood as the respectively experienceable existence of the state of the impulse as well as the instinct, etc. If conception takes place, the path from copulation to fetus comprises several developmental stages, which are the following steps. Shortly after fertilization of the egg cell, or the fusion of the nuclei of the male and female germ cells, the so-called diploid cell or zygote is formed, from which a living being is created, in this case, a human being. The diploid cell continues to develop through cell division and then moves into the uterus, where it implants and develops into an embryo. This then goes through the sex-neutral embryonic phase, which lasts until around the 7th or 8th week of development, during which time the organs are also still fully formed. Once this organ formation is complete, which is the case from around the 9th or 10th week of pregnancy, the maturing new life becomes the so-called fetus brood, etc., which is the developing child in the womb. This phase is the time of rapid growth and further development of the organs and the entire body systems, which takes place until around birth and comprehensively and completely develops the whole body and its organs. After this, from around the 38th to the 42nd week of pregnancy, birth takes place as a natural process. When, after the conception of a new human life, the pregnancy reaches the appropriate point at 21 days of development for the creation energy to enter the embryo together with the evolutionary creation energy. The embryo is enlivened, which also marks the beginning of the formation of the internal organs and thus ends the previous stage, and the embryo continues to grow until fetal development begins, which then ends with hatching or birth. With the entry of the evolutionary life energy of creation into the embryo of the completely foreign and new body, which really has absolutely no relation to the previous body and its personality and life, everything is now new. With the new entry of the vitalizing creation energy and the evolutionary creation energy into the now given new personality, an absolutely new form of a purely and absolutely creation energetic consciousness and unconsciousness also arises in it, which is stationary in the brain area of human and human-like life forms, but not as a brain organ, but as pure creation energy. The consciousness of this kind only works unconsciously for human beings throughout their lives, and therefore cannot be consciously perceived by them. Furthermore, its importance in its function is given according to the state and ability, as well as the use of the physical consciousness and the subconscious of the human organ brain, which, although highly efficient, can be used and have an extremely muted, conscious, subconscious, confusing, even pathological, etc. effect. The internal organs and external body structures are formed in the body itself. This natural process initially forms halfway before all time, before the actual life, and thus the creation energy, together with the creation energy of life, moves into the embryo, which occurs on the 21st day after conception or fertilization of an egg. When the revitalizing creation energy and evolutionary creation life energy enters the embryo on the 21st day after conception, a strong energy impulse occurs that immediately leads to independent life, which also awakens the new creation energetic consciousness and its unconscious. After this, the actual life in the womb begins, whereby the embryo grows, becomes larger, and then begins the so-called embryonic stage, which lasts around 8 weeks, during which the embryo develops into a fetus, which takes place around 9 weeks after fertilization. Then, usually after 9 weeks after fertilization, the fetus begins to develop into a baby. After this process, the baby continues to grow in the womb and becomes a growing baby human being, who is supplied with creation energy throughout its development, up to and after birth, and throughout its entire life until it dies. That is to say, until the time of its death, and thus before the decay and decay of the material body.